Okay, welcome back. Hello everyone and welcome to Where to Win webinar series. My name is Noor Basha, Senior Marketing Manager at Winwire Technologies, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. During the webinar, if you experience any audio issues, please dial in through the telephone details provided to you in your registration email. And during the webinar, please feel free to post any questions in the questions dialog, and we will try to take as many questions as we can at the end of the session. And in next 24 to 48 hours, you will also be receiving the slide deck from this session as well. So today's session is best practices on hybrid app implementation, presented by two of my colleagues at Winwire Technologies. So just before I introduce you to panelists, let me take a minute to introduce about Winwire Technologies. Okay, so Winwire Technologies is a specialized IT solutions company focused on making information actionable for the enterprise customers. Our key focus areas include mobility, cloud, collaboration, and analytics technologies. Winwire is at the forefront of mobility revolution, focused on mobile enabling enterprise applications, leveraging a native HTML5 and cloud as backend solutions or technologies. As a Microsoft managed partner, we leverage platforms such as SharePoint, Windows Azure, Office 365, and .NET as well. So with that, let me take a minute and introduce you to two of my colleagues here at Winwire Technologies, Mr. Cam Rizwani, who is the enterprise architect at Winwire Technologies, and Sanchaya Banerjee, who is the technical architect at Winwire Technologies. So both of them will be talking and covering most of the topics on the hybrid app implementation, and I hope you will enjoy the session. Thanks, and over to you, Cam.
Hi, this is Cam. We have a full agenda this morning, so I'll jump right into this. We'll do an introduction to hybrid apps, and then we'll be comparing web native and hybrid development approaches. Then we'll be talking about the hybrid app architecture, web view, native wrapper integration. Performance optimization is always important in mobile app development. And then we'll be jumping into a relatively technical session about native and web view communication, which is very important. How do these different components actually communicate with each other? And we'll also be focusing on benefits and best practices of hybrid app development. And finally, we'll be talking about a case study that we've developed here at Winwire, so you can take a look at it and see what a hybrid app actually looks like. So what is a hybrid app? A hybrid app is a mobile app that primarily relies on providing functionality by running web or displaying web content inside of a native app container or wrapper. So that seems like a bunch of jargon there, but what that actually means is that within that web view, we can either have web content, which basically is just HTML5 content that is displayed and rendered within the web view, or have a web application that actually also includes some functionality that would enable the web page to perform various functions. So your content actually within your web view locally, basically you can put the content on the mobile device itself or fetch the content from a remote server on an as-needed basis. What is an optimal usage for a hybrid app? Hybrid app is not really good for any type of app, but what has been identified generally is apps that are content intensive, such as newspapers, magazines, support forums, that deliver a lot of content to the mobile device itself. So when we compare native, web, hybrid development approaches, what are we looking at? What are the different approaches to mobile app development. Native is basically what the device manufacturer offers to you in terms of the development. Objective-C for Apple, Android would be for, would be offering Java, and Windows Mobile offers C#. And basically that's, you want to develop an app, you got to do 3 different languages. Jumping into the mobile web approach, it's basically 100% HTML5 mobile app without any native components, and that will run within the browser of the mobile device itself. There's also another distinction, which is the hybrid framework, and that's like the frameworks such as PhoneGap and Essential Mobile. They don't contain any native components like the hybrid apps do, and they basically, the frameworks embed their own web extensions into a native shell. That is different from pure hybrid, which actually has just a pure HTML5 without any extensions displayed inside of a web view. And and then the last box that we have on this page, it says 100% native with a question mark. And what does that really mean? Is anything really 100% native? Because in a native application, we can have web views or windows that display, like, let's say, PDF files, and even hybrid frameworks displayed within Windows within native. So what defines a native application is a preponderance of web content that's displayed within native. So moving on, let's talk about what is the architecture. What is a native app? I mean, what is a hybrid app looks like? It says all web content and application runs inside of web views within the native wrapper and container. So you're looking at what the slide that you're looking at. The top and bottom are the native components. Within that, you see actually 4 different web views, and each of those web views can be a distinct browser session that actually displays web content or web app inside that view. So there's a combination factor there. That's what we want to really emphasize. That's taking place. The central tenet of really hybrid app is responsive web design. This is really, really important to emphasize that your web content needs to be responsive. And responsive web design basically enables you to display content uniformly across all different platforms and form factors. And you can see the benefits like delineated there: easy reading and navigation, optimal viewing experience. It's really the magic bullet of hybrid app development is your responsive web design. And within that responsive web design, we move into multi-platform support. And what that means is that you can actually develop your app in 3 different languages. And let's say Objective-C, Java, and C#, and just use one native component, HTML5, that actually into these native development. There we go. I was waiting for the slide. So it binds into native development and creates one app. So you just have to develop the containers in the native languages and use one HTML code. And even if you want to leverage your hybrid app development even further, you can use a cross-platform tool like Accelerator or Xamarin. And that way you create one code set, for your native, and optimize it across different platforms, and of course just use one HTML5 code base as well. So moving on to the multi-form factors support. So this responsive web design really enables you to support across many form factors without the need to rewrite HTML5. But you can see how many form factors on your screen that we have to support for mobile development. The hybrid HTML5 component of it within the responsive framework can actually support all these form factors without needing to write multiple sets of code in HTML. Let's say, what is the case for native performance optimization? So if you look at that, in terms of performance optimization, implementation and access to complete set of device-specific functionality. We're talking about speech recognition. We're talking about, let's say, barcode scanning, etc. All of these can be done within the native functionality within a web view, so you get a better, faster performance because you're doing native. Of course, if you have a graphic-intensive application, you don't want to use HTML. So that's a case where you have to move away from it and use native application. And then in terms of optimizing data access, if use as much local content as you can, because remote content can create latency, of course. So without, now moving on to native web view communication, Sanjay is going to be covering that for us. Go ahead, Sanjay.
Thank you, Cam. So we will be talking about native and web view communication. Now, this is an integral part of any hybrid application. So across platforms like iOS, Android, BlackBerry, Windows, and others, the web view component is weaved along with the native components to facilitate seamless functioning. The web view component can be treated as a somewhat separate functional entity, the main purpose of which is to send requests to web servers, fetch and display the response, which consists of HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. Using certain functional aspects of the web view component, to and fro communication with the native app can be achieved to allow users to control the web view from the native component and vice versa. So we will be exploring these three different kinds of communication types, starting with the direct web view API invocation. So we have native to web view communication. In this, now since we already talked about a native component and a web view component, the first aspect of the communication between the web view and the native is the hybrid app, is the native aspect of the hybrid app invoking methods on the web view. Some of the examples are loading an URL, opening an URL, and performing navigation like navigate forward, navigate backwards. So that is what we have. So let's assume that the web view object is called a web view, or whatever it may be. The native invokes a method on the web view such as webview.openURL to open or load a web page. Similarly, we can also have navigation by using webview.goForward, webview.goBackward, so on and so forth. I know this is a little bit technical, but this is definitely a very important aspect of native and native to web view communication. Moving forward, we have a list of do's and don'ts as best practices to implement from a technical perspective. So facilitate direct communication by opening URLs. Yes, this is certainly what is to be done. Implement navigation methods using native UI components. Native aspects to be at the top and bottom of the web view to be in between these. So as Cam, my colleague, he had described earlier about a hybrid application. A hybrid application typically displays native components on top and bottom, and in between the space, the screen area is occupied by the web view components. The list of don'ts, they include creating a web view subclass to add an address bar and navigation control. So this would essentially mean we are trying to create a browser. So this is something that we don't do. Then placing native controls on top of the web view to perform actions. This basically breaks functionality. Using mobile device functionalities for controlling the web view. By this I mean, a lot of mobile devices, they provide a lot of functionality like the accelerometer, the gyrometer, the magnetometer, so on and so forth. So certain aspects of a mobile device should not be used. In fact, none of them should be used unnecessarily where it becomes unintuitive. So these are the lists of don'ts. Moving on, we have the second type of communication, which is from web view to native. Now, what happens is there are certain events generated from the web view that indicate the occurrence of an activity on the web view. These include web page beginning to load, web page loading done, and user click on the web view. So when these events are fired from the web view, the native app can capture these by means of event handlers. Typically on Absolutor Studio, those are used using event listeners, and on native platforms, this is done using delegate methods. But for understanding how it is done on a hybrid platform, we need to understand that event listeners are primarily used. Moving on to the list of do's and don'ts, we have to make sure that in the list of do's, implement event listeners for commonly used events. And the second point is implement events like swipe event if the user is notified of the registration of swipe event. And the list of don'ts include implementing all event listeners without looking into the effects. So if we implement all the event listeners, then there are side effects, and which makes an application behavior not so conformative. And finally, we have the list of don'ts, implementing events counterintuitively. Of course, we should not be implementing events otherwise. Moving on, the most important aspect of a hybrid application is about JavaScript injections. So now this is a special case. The native app can communicate with the web view to send messages using the first methodology as we talked about earlier. However, there are scenarios when the native app needs to fetch or send custom data from or to the web view. Now this is because of the fact that the web page displayed in the web view usually consists of HTML and JavaScript. In order to change certain behavior of the web page that is being displayed in the web view, or to fetch data from the web view which otherwise won't be accessible directly, the native app needs to be able to send or pull data pertaining to the web view's execution environment. Now, generally, the web view's execution environment runs JavaScript, which has its own scope, variables, methods, event listeners, etc. Now, attempting to solve the issues I just outlined require injection of certain JavaScript into the web view's execution environment. This also involves running a JavaScript code against the web view to fetch certain data pertaining to either the document object model, or which we commonly know as DOM, or the web view's JavaScript scope. In using Absolutor Studio, this is achieved by invoking the method called eval.js, which basically evaluates certain JS, injects into the web view's JavaScript context, and runs it. Using eval.js, we can use JavaScript code to be injected so that the web view's behavior can be altered, or the native aspect of the application can fetch or send data to and from the web view. List of do's and don'ts about this includes using eval.js carefully to extract content out of the loading web page in the web view. Now, this is a very important point. And the second is, think of using eval.js only as the last resort. These are the list of do's. And in the list of don'ts, we have injecting JavaScript event listeners for events like scrolling single tap. Given that, if we have a hybrid application which is displaying web view, then the web view already has it as a native component, already has its scrolling and single tap events handled by the system itself, handled by the operating system. However, JavaScript event listeners can also be used for handling events like scrolling and single tap. So we should not be overriding certain behavior like these. The second point is using eval.js as the only means to develop the app that requires web view and native communication. Of course, it should not be the only means to develop, as we pointed out in the list of do's. It should be used only as the last resort. Third point in the list of don'ts is injecting very long JavaScript. Now, if we inject very long JavaScript into the web view wherever possible, it may break functionality, and maintaining that JavaScript is also becomes pretty difficult. And of course, exercise caution when trying to inject JavaScript into the web view on different platforms. So that brings me to the end of these particular slides, wherein I was talking about web view to native communication. Now, following this, we will be talking about benefits and best practices of hybrid application development, and I'd like to pass control to Cam. Cam?
Yes, thank you. Basically, some of the benefits, let's concentrate on those first, is primary benefit of hybrid app is App Store discoverability. So if you have strictly a web view, a web application, you cannot post that into the App Store. But some applications of hybrid is where there's just so minimal native components embedded into the hybrid. It's only for the purpose of actually being able to put the app in store so it's downloaded more. Also, another benefit would be single code base. You leveraging HTML5 across all different platforms. And if you're using cross-platform tools like Accelerator or Xamarin, you're also leveraging that. So it's really, you're saving a lot on the development costs. And then your developer base is much larger for HTML5 than it is for any native component that you actually want to build into the application itself, such as C# or Java or Objective-C. And then moving on to native mobile device specific functionality. This is really important because if you're using strictly a web application, you have to go to an abstraction layer to get to the native device functionality. But within a hybrid app, you have direct access to the latest and greatest native device functionality. So it's really best of both worlds. You don't lose anything by going hybrid access. All the greatest features like speech recognition, accelerometers, anything that the native device has to offer to you. You have a rapid development cycle, of course. You're not developing all these different code bases and doing all kinds of testing. You just have one code base that you're working out of, and that's HTML. And that also leads to much improved maintenance costs over the long run. So some of the challenges, is it a magic bullet? I'll be looking at, we've discussed the magic bullet, but not by all means. Actually, there are some challenges here, and I'd like to touch upon those real quick. When you're using, HTML to develop an app within a native, within a device like, iPhone or Android device, you're using non-native UI interfaces, so it's not as attractive as actually using native components that come with the device itself, that are native to the device, so to speak. And those native components have superior performance, obviously. So if your application is UI intensive, shows a lot of UI, it's probably better to go with a native development approach. Of course, platform variations for WebView implementation, HTML5, there's slight variations within iOS, Android, and Windows Mobile. So you have to account for those, of course. That can be challenging if those come into play a lot in your development effort. Latency in fetching remote HTML content. If everything is on a remote server and you constantly are pulling it in and then showing it on the native device, remember you're pulling full web pages and showing them, so there's some latency there. That could be a factor. Again, my colleague Sanjay talked about integration of data between native and web views. That if there is too much of that going on, that could be also challenging. There could be performance issues. So we want in our hybrid app to keep that to a minimum if at all possible. And of course, the last challenge would be that really under the hood you have a patchwork of code. That there's HTML, there's your native code, and they're all interweaving with each other and talking to each other. But you're doing that so you can get the benefits of a single code base. So some of the best practices, let's touch upon those. Color scheme. Yeah, you want to keep the color scheme consistent across your WebView components and your native components, so it provides an illusion of single app, not an app within app, and avoids a patchwork look on their presentation layer. Content, you want to cache it as much as possible to latency, and also allow for offline viewing. Remember, you have information that resides on the backend server, and you have to keep fetching those, and on a mobile device that is a challenge always, because you have to go to carrier networks and all that. On your search functionality, you definitely want to have that in native format, because then the search results come back JSON or XML, and that's much it's a smaller payload than the HTML completely rendered pages coming back as your search result. That's a good, very, very good best practice. Also, you want to put all your device-specific functionality in native, like such as push notification settings or calendar synchronization switch. That type of stuff, you don't want to put that on the HTML side. That will keep a consistent look and feel for your app itself. Let's take a look at a case study. We have in our case study here, the screen here you're looking at. Right now, the screen here you're looking at, everything is in native. So we have highly customized these pages with native components. The tiles, it looks very good, and so that demonstrates to you that you have the ability to have a very good presentation layer with your native. And then moving on, you can weave in the your hybrid components in there, your HTML components. You can see the HTML pages, responsive web page on the top, and then the toolbar on the bottom that is in native. You can see, again, keeping the consistency of the color scheme. All the content is being fetched from a server, and then we're keeping the color scheme consistent, so you can't really what is native and what is HTML. It's just everything looks consistent. And essentially providing native device functionality. This is we have here, you're looking at speech recognition and barcode scanning. This is all native. So that basically has nothing to do with HTML. It's all performance optimized for natives. Also, looking at native search functionality. Yes, everything you're looking at on the left side is all native. And then that allows you to get back some, when you issue the search command, you get the functionality back. You get the XML payload or JSON payload to render in the native format. Also, you can see on the native search, you have barcode search and voice search. So that's weaved into, the nativity is weaved into the hybrid. And also, you can see that we have the settings, mobile-specific settings within the native. That's the native look and feel that we want to keep. So that the user knows that, oh yeah, they're using a native app. And Sanjay, please feel free to add anything else you'd like to our case study. And we'd like to take some questions if there are any right now.
Yeah, so as Cam already said, so barcode features, voice recognition features, and other features that are basically device dependent, they are used, and like Cam was again saying, it provides the look and feel of a very unified app, and it doesn't make it look like it's a separate app altogether, or there are different components that are not weaved in together. So yes, so a hybrid application implementation actually makes it makes the content appear to the user in a very unified and uniform manner. So yeah, over to you.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Cam, and thanks, Sancho. It was a very useful session, and I'm sure the audience would have enjoyed hearing about the hybrid app implementation. So let me take few questions from the audience now. Okay. So the first question is, what is the biggest challenge in delivering cross-platform a promise of a hybrid app? So if Sanjay or Cam, if you could just take up this question, please.
Yeah, see, the biggest challenge in delivering cross-platform promise of a hybrid app is it starts from the concept of merging different platforms together. So we have iOS and we have Android, we have Windows and BlackBerry, and probably a couple of more other platforms that have dived into the mobile arena. Now what happens is, in order to create a hybrid app, the first and foremost challenge that we have to face is in understanding how does one SDK of one platform map onto the other one. So, or map onto the hybrid platform. So that mapping is extremely crucial, and in understanding how that mapping works, because every SDK for every platform is different, and although there are some commonalities, even then, in order to understand how to make certain things work in certain ways across platforms, that have to be consistent across platforms, is one of the biggest challenge in understanding and delivering cross platform promises.
Okay, thanks, Sanjay. So I know we are running out of time, but I think we'll have a couple of more questions coming here. So the next one is it possible that hybrid apps face a compatibility issues with new versions of native OS coming and new emerging devices that are coming into the market now?
Yes, they definitely face compatibility issues. See, the concept of facing compatibility issues is so ingrained, because every other day, we have with every iteration of a new operating system version. Let's say we are currently at iOS 7.1, and it started from iOS 2 point something when iOS was actually released, and similarly for Android. So with every iteration, there is a possibility that there are compatibility issues with different versions. But this challenge is actually faced by the SDK provided by the hybrid app IDE and the SDK, which takes care of this particular scenario and keeps updating it in such a manner that compatibility issues are minimized. So yes, they do face compatibility issues, yes, and we are aware of that, but more generally than ever, they are also taken care of.
Okay, thanks, Sanjay. And the last question before we wrap up the session is there any performance degradation when using native device functionality in a hybrid app versus the pure native approach?
Yes, there is a performance degradation when using native device functionality in a hybrid app, but not entirely. Now, that degradation will only come due to the reason that there's an extra load of memory that has been consumed by the other components that are used in a hybrid app. Now, also, let's say for that matter, Accelerator Studio. I mean, Accelerator Studio, it uses JavaScript, and then also it uses the mapping between the Titanium and the Alloy SDKs, and those things are mapped into the native device SDKs. Now, what essentially happens is, due to that mapping, there is just one overhead layer of being able to delegate certain functionalities from the hybrid layer to the native layer. But overall, if we look at how it works, then and how the performance of the hybrid app is, we find that the performance issues, or degradation as we say, are hardly visible. So although they are visible at a very technical level, but to the user, these issues are actually hardly visible. Of course, a pure native approach would be definitely faster, but if we were to make an application that assumes the native approach and displays web content, the difference between a hybrid app and a pure native app would hardly be noticeable. So I hope that answers the question.
Yep. Thanks, Sanjay. I think we answered most of the questions. In addition to this, if you guys, folks, have any questions, you can just reach out to us at marketing@winwire.com, and our consultants will come back to you with the appropriate answers. And once again, thank you all for joining the session, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, Sanjay. Thanks, Cam. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.